Welcome to the Startup Grind.
All right, thanks a lot, Juan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, first of all, before we start, Juan, I want to thank our sponsor, We're Colony. This is a great new co-working space in Colombia, top notch for anybody who's looking for some good space to connect with people and work in Colombia. So great to see you. I know you don't live in Colombia now. You've lived in a lot of places in the world. You live in Miami right now.
Yeah.
What I want to do is start to talk about the very beginning, like where you were born, the type of household, etc. So why don't we start from there? Like where were you born? What were your family?
Okay, so happy to be in Colombia. Happy to be here. Thank you for hosting us here. So I was born in Colombia in 1973. So I'm from the 70s, in a typical middle-class family in Colombia. At that time, Colombia was very close. Speaking in English nobody was speaking in English. I went to a Catholic school, Liceo del Cervantes, that it was very popular at that moment. And it was, regular life. My dad used to work for Ecopetrol. It was the oil company. My mom was at home. I had a brother and a sister. And it was, very common, easy life. Middle class, upper middle class in Bogota, Colombia.
Neither of your parents were entrepreneurs? Or?
No. My dad was working in oil companies, being Ecopetrol, the last one. And my mom was helping, with social work and all that. So, and nobody in my family was a real entrepreneur. And at that moment, it was more about working for companies in Colombia, working for a multinational company or working for a big bank. That was, the dream of everybody in Colombia. So I went to school. I was not a good student at school. I lost 2 years. I was actually, I studied in Liceo Cervantes, but I finished in another school. So in quinto de bachillerato, in 11th grade, I had to move to another school because they didn't want me to be there.
Can you say any details about that, or would you rather keep that?
No, that's fine. So I lost 11th grade.
Yeah, you failed.
And I failed, so they decided that I was not the right fit for the school. So they sent a letter to my family saying that, please don't, you are rejected, so we don't want your kid here with us. So I moved to another school, very easy going, very nice people, Alfonso Jaramillo. That it was a lot of my friends from Liceo Cervantes that were not in Liceo Cervantes, so we met over there. And I had 2 wonderful years, 11 and 12. Okay. Then I started to study administration, business.
Yeah, but before that, what did you focus on in school? Like, since it wasn't your studies, what did you focus on?
I like it, to make money, to have money.
What did you do to make money? Like, what kind of things?
My uncle had an optica. So I used to work for him, during the summer and, vacations, just to make some money. But I was not very concerned about money at that moment.
Okay.
And it was more about going to college, to the university. So I went to Universidad Rosario. Mm-hmm. And I started to work I started to study in Universidad Rosario. And it was good. It was my first 3 semesters. Was actually at the university, I was a very good student. So not at the school, but at the university, I was inspired and I liked what I was studying and learning. So I think that improved a lot my grades. But then I decided to leave Colombia because I wanted to go to the US, because I wanted to have an experience in the US. So I was one of the first few students that decided to leave Universidad Rosario, and I went to Rice University in Texas, Houston, Texas. And it was a big challenge, and experience for me. So I moved and I continued my studies in Houston, Texas. And I started to work for Enron. That was an oil company over there. And I started to learn about oil at that moment. And I was doing trading at that moment. And I had wonderful time in Houston. So I love Texas, and good friends, good Colombian friends, good Texas friends. We had a blast.
So, but wait a second. Was this during college? Like, you had a part-time job at Enron?
Yeah, it was a part-time job.
Okay.
My dad was very connected in the oil industry, so he had some friends. Because of those connections, I got the job. The first 6 months I was working, during school. Then I finished and I got, the work visa for a year. And I decided to stay in Houston for a year. Then I decided to go back to Colombia.
Okay, but one question. So that was a big change from Colombia to the United States, and not just the United States, but the United States at Enron. So what kind of stuff did you learn or impact?
At that moment, Enron was a wonderful company to work for. Mm-hmm. And actually, remember, in the Times and all that, was the best company to work for and all that. So it was a great experience. I was in the process of learning English because in the school that I went to, it was from Spain. So we didn't have, real good English at school. So I was in the process of learning English, get used to the US, learn about the culture, learning business in English. So it was a big experience challenge for me.
Okay.
Moment.
At that point, did you think you were going to be an entrepreneur, or you weren't even thinking of that stuff? Okay.
At that time, it was more about working. I was living the dream. Working in the U.S. Working in Houston, Texas, oil company. I was very happy. Mm-hmm. Then I decided to finish my school, come to Colombia. Anyway, I graduated at Universidad del Rosario, so I validated some grades, and I got my degree here. And I started to work for an insurance company, CHOP, from New York, from Warren. And I started, and I was, at that moment, very few people speak English, had an experience in the US, so I had the opportunity to go to New York to learn a claim system, and then go back to Colombia to implement the system with the IT team. So I was involved in that process. I went to New York. It was wonderful. So I had a great time, but I was not happy with the insurance. Mm-hmm. I didn't like insurance, and it was clear for me that insurance was not my passion. My passion was more about technology. So when I came back, I started to implement the system 6-8 months later.
AS400?
No, it was a claim system developed by them, but it was running on AS400. And then it was an opportunity with Tricom. Tricom, it was a networking company. And the manager in Colombia was looking for a finance manager for Colombia. So I got the opportunity, and I started to work in Tricom as a finance manager for Colombia. And we opened the operations here in Colombia, and then we opened the operations in Venezuela. Venezuela was reporting to Colombia. I had, business experience, knowledge, and some accounting and US and all that US GAAP and all that.
And you were sent to Venezuela, right?
I was working in Colombia, and after a year of 2 years, I moved to Venezuela before Chavez. So Venezuela was paradise. So Caracas was one. I was single, Caracas was wonderful, and I had a blast in Caracas. And I did a good job, and then they asked me to run Latin America, based in Silicon Valley, in San Jose. So I moved to San Francisco, and then to San Jose, and I was with them 5 years, running Latin America, initially as a finance manager. Then I learned that in finance you don't make money, you make money selling. So I moved to sales. So in those 4 or 5 years, I did the transition to be a finance controller guy to be a sales guy.
Okay, but there's people who have gone to the States. What was it that you think they saw in you that they kept giving you these opportunities to go to the States, to handle bigger and bigger challenges?
I think it's all about passion. If you are excited of what you are doing, no matter what you are doing, if it's what you like and you are proud and you put the extra mile, I believe that you can find the opportunities. So, and I had that opportunity because I decided to go to Houston 5 years ago. So, having some knowledge in English, understanding GAAP, US GAAP, understanding the culture, reporting, numbers, plus being a Colombian, very familiar with Venezuela. So I had, all that good relation with your boss. So, I always had a good relation with my boss. Open doors. And it's all about, being passionate, being, you need to look for the opportunities.
And then you had made that transition from finance to
sales. And then Computer Associate, another IT company, offered me the position to manage Central America and the Caribbean, based in Miami. So I moved from San Francisco, San Jose to Miami. I love that city. San Francisco is beautiful, but it's too far and too expensive. But in San Francisco, I really got in touch of technology and internet. At that moment was the time of Google, the time of Salesforce.com, the time of all those companies. And living in Silicon Valley, you go to a restaurant and everybody's talking about internet technology, Facebook, Palo Alto. That's if you went to Stanford, University Avenue in Palo Alto is where everything happens. So I really got that energy. And I was very excited about that energy. But I moved to Miami, and I started to run Central America and the Caribbean for Computer Associates. It was a great experience. It was my first experience really managing a region. And then I got a position in EMC. EMC is a storage company, huge company, based in Boston. But I was based in Miami managing Latin America. Basically, they were very strong in the corporate business, enterprise business, selling, storage to banks, big companies, and they wanted to start to develop small and medium businesses. So I was in charge of that. Working like 2 years, then EMC bought VMware, that is a virtualization company in software, big opportunity. They bought it for $500 million, and then the IPO was like a 20+ billion. 3 years later. So I was in Latin America, managing Latin America for VMware. Like 2 years, very good experience, relation with my boss. Always you need to have.
But what amazes me is how easily it seems like you just went from finance to sales. I've met a lot of finance
It was
guys.
not easy.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
First is that you make money in sales. You don't make money in finance. Working for those type of companies. Salespeople, they don't like finance people. And the way that I'm more like a sales guy, not a finance guy. So I did that transition, and it took me like 7 years to really move from the moment that I was hired in Colombia to the moment that I started to run Computer Associate. It was almost 7 years. So slowly, I moved to.
Okay.
So, but I was very happy doing that, traveling like crazy. I have 5 million miles in American Airlines, executive platinum for life. It sounds exciting, but that's depressing when you have a family later. But yeah, I went over the region. Working in VMware, I had the opportunity to manage Salesforce.com. So Salesforce.com, wonderful CRM, and the company booming. So the president of Salesforce.com in Latin America invited me to work for him, managing all the channels and the new initiative. They used to sell 100% direct to enterprise, and now they wanted to develop a channel to go to different markets. So I was in charge of that. But then it was, like 12, 15 years working in corporate America, and I got sick of corporate America and the politics and all that. So I decided, okay, this is time for me to look for my opportunity, and I want to be an entrepreneur. And then I met my partner, today is my business partner, Jaime Roldan, I think that you know him. And in a party, he told me, hey, why don't we do something for Facebook? This is 7 years ago. And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure. And I had to go to Austin, Texas to visit Dell, because Dell was one of our channels. And I went to American Airlines and I bought a Time magazine, and the cover was Mark Zuckerberg. And was about, he was explaining about the platform that they were opening and all the opportunities that would create. So I was reading that and I said, okay, this is where we are gonna be. So I came back to Miami and I called my friend and said, okay, let's do it. So this is 2008. And I said, okay, let's do it. So he's a developer. So he was developing. I'm a business guy, I'm a sales guy, I'm not a developer. So he told me, let's start developing applications for Facebook. And I said, I don't know. What we need to do is to create something to scale. Because we can build, 3 applications, 4 applications, and the success rate is too low. So we are not going to be successful on that. So what we did is that we didn't have, I was working for a company, but I had a family, so I was not rich, so we didn't have enough cash so we called a friend, another Colombian guy, very successful, that I used to play football with him, and he was from El Cervantes as well, living in Miami, and say, hey, we need $150,000. And he gave us $150,000 for 1/3 of the company. The company was not in our ideas. We went to China, Turkey, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and basically we visited all the universities of the major universities, and we proposed the universities to launch a contest about developing the best Facebook application. And what we did is that we offered a $5,000 prize for whoever builds the best Facebook application. So
in all those countries?
In all those countries.
Okay.
Something that I learned from managing for 15 years companies, for example, in Tricon, I was managing 200 million in revenue, and so for me it's very easy to go to China and start talking in China. I'm not afraid of that today, and it really helped me to start this new company. So why we pick those countries? We pick the countries where Facebook has the highest penetration, and second, we try to pick countries where different language in order to have different skills. So the first market was Colombia, and the only university that really got in touch with us and got excited was EAFIT in Medellin. So we launched it in EAFIT, and then we started to launch it in all different markets. What we did is that I had a very good connection with IT companies. So for example, in Mexico, we launched it together with Adobe. In South Africa, with Microsoft. In China, with Google. Uh-huh. So I called my friends in all those companies and say, hey, I want to launch this. Microsoft was in the process of promoting Silverlight. Mm-hmm. And Adobe was promoting, all the applications, and Google was promoting Orkut in Brazil. So we call all those guys and say, okay, let's do it together, because it's easier to go to EAFIT or to go to USP in São Paulo together with Microsoft.
So your alliances background.
Yeah. So basically we put that in place. We went to all those countries and we became, I would say at that moment, one of the companies with more developers around us.
Launching the contest for Facebook application.
Facebook application.
So contest in those
so we went to all those universities. We picked 1 or 2 universities in all those countries, and we say, okay, develop your application. We went to universities with ingeniería sistemas, with IT background, and we say, create your application. We give you the guidelines, because I went to Palo Alto and I spoke to Facebook and I got some information from Facebook about all the guidelines and best practices to develop. We gave them all that guidelines, and we say, okay, launch it. We will help you to host those applications. So it was a company in California, Joyent, that it was giving for free,
the hosting.
The hosting. Mm-hmm. So we partnered with them. Actually, they went to us with all the road trip and say, okay, launch the application. This is the best practices. You don't need to pay for the hosting, because Joyent is going to cover those expenses. And whoever launch the applications and have more users, we are going to give a prize. and you have the opportunity to sign a publisher agreement with us. So they call us and say, we want to open the platform of Orkut in Brazil. Can you help us? And we say, yes. And we help Google to open the platform. And they gave us the opportunity to be the first developers putting applications in Orkut. So we developed the calendar application, the birthday application, all the silly applications, but it was the first application. We got a lot of users.
And you worked out all the kinks. They helped you out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parallel to that, we went to China, and China was very well developed in social gaming. It was not Facebook, it was 51, all those social networks, but they were very well advanced in social gaming. And we were with Google, and Google introduced with the major developers, and we signed publishing agreement with them to bring those games into Brazil. So basically, it was like 50-50 revenue share. We signed like 4 or 5 developers, big developers, developers of 200 plus people, just coding every day, the games. And we put those games in Brazil. We were the first one. We created an office in Medellin. We hired some guys, and we started to create a payment platform. That today is PayMentez, but we start to create a payment platform to let users to pay. We plugged the first game, nothing happened. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then 5 users, 10 users, 100,000 users, 2 million users, 42 million users download our game in Brazil.
How long did it take to get to 42?
3 months. It was crazy. 3-4 months crazy.
It was made by you or by the
No, by the Chinese developers. But we were hosting the games. We translate those games and we monetize those games. But it was crazy. My partner that was in charge, he was the CTO, he couldn't sleep. Because no matter how many servers, we were running the servers in Amazon. Initially virtual servers, then we moved to physical servers. We used to have like 350 physical servers just supporting one game. It was crazy.
Can you explain the revenue model?
50-50. So whatever that game produced, 50% for the developers, 50% for us.
And you were in charge of distribution, sales, support, everything besides coding?
Yeah. But support was online, basically. Distribution was through the social network. At that moment, we didn't pay anything to Google, because then Facebook started to charge later. But at that moment, we didn't pay anything to Google. So basically, it was pure margin for us. And we were a company of about 15 people. And it was crazy, 29 million daily active users. 5% of them paying every day. Thousands of transactions a day.
Which game?
Colheita Feliz was the name of, in Portuguese, that is like a happy farm. Colheita Feliz. If you go to Brazil and you ask somebody, taxi driver, whoever, about Colheita Feliz in Orkut, they will remember that game. It was the major game in Brazil. So it was crazy. This is 2010, just before. I remember the year because it was the World Cup in South Africa. It was before the World Cup. The game was crazy, was growing. We started to plug more games, fish games, fighting games, soccer games, different games in Orkut. It was a private equity from New York, Inside Venture Partners. And at that moment, Brazil was super hot. Everybody wanted to be in Brazil. And actually, if you remember, the economist was saying that Brazil is the miracle. And everybody wanted to be in Brazil. But Brazil is a closed economy. It's very difficult to penetrate. So all the private equities outside saw us as an opportunity to be in Brazil. So basically, a private equity, we were about to sell the company to a Universo Online, Wall, in Brazil. because everybody wants to be part of that. And a private equity from New York came, we met them, and basically they bought 50% of the company. And then it was about, when you sell your company to a private equity, your life changed.
How big was that transaction? Like not the actual number, but
It's not
pretty,
public, but
yeah.
the evaluation was over 100 million.
Okay.
So it was a big transaction at that moment. Then, we start to work with Facebook, because then Facebook started to grow in Brazil and Orkut to decline. So we start to, and Facebook was more challenging, because then our competition was Zynga, because they were the kings in Facebook, all the Zynga games. And it was very difficult to compete, so it was a challenging time, being in Facebook in Brazil. Then we decided to sell the rights of the games back to the developers, and the opportunity that we saw is, okay, the payment platform. So basically the payment platform, let's use the payment platform. So my first customer was Zynga. So I went to California and say, hey, you are in Latin America, you want to grow, I have the platform, because I have 190,000 physical point of sales, because 50% of my users pay with cash. I have integration with all the mobile operators in Brazil, and I process credit and debit cards. And that's PayMentez. So what we say is that we split PayMentez outside of spin-off outside of Mentez, and we focus in payments.
And the transaction, the first transaction from the venture capital, not venture, but the
Private
equity.
private equity, you sell also PayMentez, or
They bought everything, including they bought everything. Then when we divided the company in two, they were part of the two companies. So in the last 2 years, we bought them out of PayMentez, and we focus in PayMentez. So today, PayMentez has like a 3 business line. One is payments. So we offer payments in Latin America, not only Brazil, for virtual content. So I don't compete with PayU or Pagos Online, those type of guys, PayPal, because I focus only on gaming, on Skype, those type of virtual content. And I'm very good at that, because I understand my DNA is gaming. I know about microtransactions, about thousands of users paying $5 every day. The other guys, they are more about, they want to get, Land Chile or Avianca, all those type of big accounts, but that's another business. My business is more about microtransactions in payment. And we have a big operation, and we know that. We process 60,000 transactions a day. Now it's not my games, it's my customers' game, but the major games, we process that.
You said there were 3 lines, right?
This is one line.
Yeah.
This is the payment gateway. Then we move to prepaid cards. And with prepaid cards is basically, we found that there are a lot of users that they didn't have a credit card, or they didn't want to use the credit card. So what we offer is a MasterCard prepaid card. And with MasterCard prepaid card, they can buy that card and they can reload the card. And that card works like a credit card. And what we did is initially we launched those cards for our games, or for the games that we monetize. So we have the Havo card, the Minimundos card, the major games. And lately we partner with soccer teams. For example, Corinthians is the largest team in Brazil, in São Paulo, 40 million fans. We have the Gaviões da Fiel card. Basically, if you are a Corinthians fan, you can buy the prepaid card. That is you reload that card, you can spend every dollar that you spend, you make points. And those points, you can change those points with shirts or stuff from the team. So we are growing in the prepaid card. And that's my second line. And my third line is about mobile applications. So I believe that the future is mobile. So I'm not involved, but I'm one of the investors of Smart Taxi, which is a taxi application here in Bogota, Colombia. They launch in Mexico. And basically what I do is they use PayMentez as a platform. So basically when you take a taxi and you pay with your credit card, it's a partnership with MasterCard, most of the cases. We process the transaction, and then we gave to the taxi driver, because those guys, they don't have a bank account, we gave a prepaid card. the taxi card. And basically today we have about 5,000 taxi drivers in Bogota that they are using my car, and all the transactions are being sent to that car every night. We are talking in Brazil with 99 Taxis, which is the largest company, Uber in Latin America, to offer the same type of solution. And lately, in the last 12 months, MasterCard has a MasterCard Labs in Ireland, and basically they are inventing the future of the payments in the world. And they launched a very cool application where you can buy, you can search all the restaurants or places around you. You can see the menu, you can select, pay, and they place the order and they integrate with the POS system of the restaurant. So basically, we are doing that with MasterCard. They launch in Australia, the UK, they are growing a lot in the UK and the US, and we partner with them for Latin America.
Excuse me, what's the name of that?
Places.
Places.
With Z, called Zeta, with Z. And I'm here this week in Colombia because we are launching the application in Colombia. So very soon, when you go to Cine Colombia, to Cine, and you are seated watching the movie, now you can see the menu of the confiteria, and then you can select and pay, and they will bring the food to you.
You put your seat number there.
You put your seat, and they will. When you go very soon, I think in a couple of weeks, if you are fans of Santa Fe, and you go to watch the game, it's the same experience. You can buy the food and then pick the food at the place. And companies like Donut Factory, we are talking with all the major food chain, and basically that we integrate the application with them. Something that is different is that we have the integration with the POS system. And this is very challenging. There are like 5 companies in the world. One is Micros, owned by Oracle, Aloha, owned by NCR, ICG is a Spanish company, and there are local players. Those are it's difficult to integrate those guys. We are in the process. We reintegrate Micros and ICG, and we are working with the other guys. And we have a solution, the same application has a solution for table restaurants. So when you go, for example, to Andrés Carne de Res, and then now at the end, you don't need to call the waitress to say la cuenta and see, and then my card. You can see all in your application. You can say pay or split the account, the bill between the 3 of us and pay. So it's the way that I see it is as the way that Uber is changing transportation in the world. I believe that Places is going to change the experience in restaurants, cinemas, stadiums, all that. So I'm very excited about that project, and this is what we are launching this week in Colombia.
Okay, so let's go behind the scenes. So that was a great history. Let's go behind the scenes of what was happening behind the scenes. So you were in a company, a corporate environment, and you decided to go create this new company and travel to China and all this stuff. What was your family saying? What were you? Did you have any doubts? Were you scared?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first, I told you, it sounds like it's very easy, but it was not that easy, and I made a lot of mistakes. Just before to go there, I mean, I have invested in the last 3 years or 4 years in different companies, and I have failed a lot. So it's not easy, and I made a lot of mistakes. I think the most important thing is to learn from your mistake. What you don't want is to repeat the same mistake. And the mistake that I believe that I made, it was to invest in companies where you are not involved, or it doesn't have synergy with your business, or you don't understand that business. We were one of the investors of El Corral, Hamburguesas El Corral in the US. And basically it was a big mistake for us because we didn't understand that business, and it was not the right business to invest in. It could be a very good business, yes, but not for us. So one of the mistakes that we have made is about investing in business that we don't know. And I believe now that we have learned, basically all that we are doing needs to be related with our core business, that in my case is PayMentez. So these Places, the Prepaid Cards, the Smart Taxi, the KBN, in some way is related and is so we can really create synergy between all the companies that we are doing. Going back to your point, was very difficult. I mean, I travel a lot and I didn't sleep. It was a major cost for my family, for my wife, but she supported me and it was very important.
And what were like the big challenges, the big like things that had you scared when you were starting? Because you were a corporate guy, and you became an entrepreneur or something.
I think that being a corporate guy helped me a lot.
Okay.
In the sense that I had the experience to manage a budget of 5 million in marketing, for example. So I'm not scared about spending money.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared about closing a deal.
And being global. I think that was pretty amazing that you went to
So
China, to all those places.
that was really helped me, my experience in corporate America. But I believe that, always there are challenges, and when you start to face those challenges, it scares you. And then, 6 months later or a year later, I mean, you say, okay, that was easy, and I can do it again. But at that moment, different situations, different challenges is not easy. I think the most important thing is to move forward and be consistent and persistent, because it's difficult. I mean, it's not easy.
How about working with co-founders? How did you select the co-founders? How did all that go?
I was very lucky with selecting my business partner, Jaime, in the sense that, from the beginning we were very successful. Then in all the other business that I have done, it's not easy. I believe that it's all about the people. It could be the best idea, but if you don't have the best people and you don't execute properly, it's not going to work. And so it's not easy to find the right people. And the right people is a combination of factors. Is people that is prepared, people that is inspired, people that is committed, people that is willing to give the extra mile. So I think that now when I see an opportunity, a challenge, what I see is who is behind. And more than understanding the business, I want to understand the person. I want to know that people. I want to be with them, with customers. I want to really know that person. So, because it's all about the people. I think that it's all about the people, and it's all about having the vision to create something that in some way could be regional or it could be global. I think that's important as well. Because you can have the best idea, but if that idea only works in Bogota, in our industry, there is not enough critical mass to really make it happen.
So PayMentez, what countries is that working in?
Brazil, Mexico. Today we have operations in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia. Those are our main operations.
How many people do you have in the company?
No many. We have 32, 33.
Your businesses, you haven't like hired hundreds of people. Like Mentez was also,
Yeah,
like how many people? Mentez?
40, 50.
Okay.
We made a lot of mistakes in Mentez with the management team. We hired a guy in Brazil that almost destroyed the company.
Oh, really? How? Let's go deeper on that one.
In the sense of he was not the right leader.
Okay.
And leadership is difficult. And he basically, we made a big mistake with that guy, so he was not the right leader. We were for me, one of my mistakes is that for me it's difficult to find, the people that I really trust. But I had the private equity, and the private equity was asking me for somebody, very high level, senior level, managing the company in Brazil, because I was living in Miami. And at that moment, I didn't want to move from Miami to Brazil. It was difficult for personal reasons. So we decided to hire somebody, senior person. And hiring senior people is difficult. Those guys, they have a personal agenda. And it's difficult. We made a
What would
big
you have
mistake.
done differently, looking back, knowing what you know now? would you?
I would not invest in El Corral, for sure.
No, but I mean, in terms of that guy that you hired, like if you were in the same situation again, and they said, hire a senior person.
You need to spend more time knowing the people.
Okay.
So, and you know, actually we hire a company, a recruiter. But the reality is that recruiter, you know, goes and see, you know, something, but it doesn't really, you need to know the people in a daily basis. That now I prefer to hire somebody that works for a company that interface with us in some way, that I know the person, that I know how the person treats the people, and I know if that person has a personal agenda. So I think that's important.
Okay. Now talking about the businesses, like you've lived in Silicon Valley, everything, but you have another business which is Latin America focused. What is the big opportunity you see in Latin America compared to creating something that's for the United States or something like that?
I want to create something for the U.S. I believe that the time that you spend developing a market of this size is the same time of energy to develop a market of this size. And if you are successful, the return is 10 times bigger. So, and that's why we were in Brazil and not in Colombia 7 years ago. But at this moment, I would like to do something for the US. And I believe the US is the right market for our industry. Latin America, I believe that I was very optimistic about Latin America 3-4 years ago. I'm not that optimistic at this moment, but I believe that there is a lot of opportunities. Brazil is a big market, it's 200 million people, almost 200 million phones. Smartphone penetration is very high, banking penetration is high, very social. User adoption in Brazil is very high. So everything in Brazil could really become big. Unfortunately, Brazil is having some economical problems, and I believe that the next 2 years in Brazil is going to be difficult, challenging. But we have a strong presence there, so I'm not very concerned. Mexico is a very interesting market, 110, 120 million people. Unfortunately, the user adoption is very slow. So when you compare Mexico and Brazil high user adoption, Mexico low, because several reasons. But Mexico could be an interesting market if you know how to penetrate.
How about entrepreneurs? like entrepreneurs looking at now and you think are going to come down the road?
In Brazil, a couple of years ago, it was hot. Everybody, I mean, when you go to talk to people in the university, finishing university, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I believe that with the economic situation now, they are more pessimistic about it. But Brazil is very well advanced in that. Mexico, is a very traditional market. It's a market that is more of big companies, monopolies. So I believe that entrepreneurship in Mexico is low. I think that Colombia is growing. I think that Colombia, there is a couple of cases in Colombia, the taxi guys, that they did a very good job. De la Calle with Punto Co, he sold his company. I believe that there are good cases. I see more and more people inspire. You guys trying to create all this. I think that Colombia is very different today than 5 years ago. Hopefully, everybody continue to really do it. My only advice is that whatever you do, think about regional or global, because I don't believe that Colombia has enough critical mass to really focus in Colombia, unless you have a traditional business. I mean, if you are a banker or if you are a real estate developer, or, Colombia is big enough. But if you want to create, an application or a different way from internet, I believe that Colombia still needs more critical mass, so it's going to be challenging. But whatever you do in Colombia works in Colombia, you can replicate it in Mexico, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Spain, even in the US. So that's my advice to the Colombian entrepreneur. But I'm excited. I believe that Colombia is in a good trend.
And any last thing you wanna say that I haven't asked you? Or am I putting it on the spot?
I think that I said everything. I would ask
Okay,
if
but first,
somebody.
first thanks a lot for.
Okay, no, thank you for.